Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Located at 109 Wall Boulevard in Gretna, Uniforms by Logo Express provides school uniforms, medical wear, hospitality wear, safety and industrial wear, and so much more. We offer a number of locations on both sides of the river. 2 in Chantilly, 1 in Woodmere, and our main store located in Gretna. Uniforms by Logo Express. Your brand starts here.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, Crescent City, and welcome to our 15th episode of Primetime Sports. And Derek Freeman in the MFG. Derek's back after Jazz Fest. He came back for a week, and then he had a birthday celebration. How was it in Pensacola for your birthday, Derek?
Oh, man, it was amazing, but it was also exhausting.
We saw the pictures parasailing. We were all jealous. So, hey, by the way, we're going to have Derek for a full segment. I want to talk about his career, acting, music, and everything else. I can't wait for that. We have a jam-packed show for you, but we got a lot of things that just went on in the Crescent City this weekend and beyond. Up there in Baton Rouge, it was a big weekend for the LSU Tigers. They went in on a 9-game win streak against number 1 Florida. Well, they got the first 2 against Florida, extend that win streak to 11, and they end up losing the nightcap on Saturday afternoon, the second part of the doubleheader. It was made up for the first part for rain on Thursday. But hey, LSU is now ranked all the way at 7th in the country. They had a special guest in the dugout this weekend. Everybody that knows Duck Dynasty, I used to watch that the first year it came out. Got a little tired of it, but Jace Robertson right there, one of the sons of the former Louisiana Tech quarterback, joined LSU. And the Rally Possum, well, it was on for most of the last 2 weeks. It failed on Saturday, but they are right now, ironically, 7th in the country, but only 5th in their own conference right now. So they have to play a game tonight. Hey, Tulane Green Wave, I can't say enough about what they've done. David Pierce and his team, they have won their first American Athletic Conference. They've only been in that conference for 3 years now, but congrats to them. They have come a long way in just a couple years since Pierce took over. Tulane, a once proud program, former World Series team under Rick Jones. Well, they're bringing it back to prominence with that first crown. And by the way, this weekend, and this week I should say, the conference tournaments begin. In fact, right now, Tulane's playing at 6 o'clock right now tonight. That's the first game. They play UCF. LSU, well, they have to win. You know, if you get into the first round right now, which they're not used to being in, well, you have to win to go further. They're starting a guy that hasn't started many games. They play Tennessee tonight at 8. Tomorrow night, Southeastern UNO. Remember, Southeastern was 21-3 in conference. They lost 5 of their last 6, and the first 2 of those 5 were to UNO. So hopefully they'll get back on track. I don't know who to root for there. They're both local. UL Lafayette and Arkansas State will play also tomorrow night at 7:30. Hey, a lot of these players from those teams made all conference. How about Tulane had 4 first-teamers, 3 second-teamers? That is amazing considering where they've been in recent years. LSU, well, they have 2 guys on the first team as well. The SEC is 14 deep. That's pretty impressive. And UNO, where they've come from, I told you they were literally 8 wins and over 80 losses in conference the last 3 conference years they played. They've had 2 guys on the first team this year and 2 on the second team. So congrats to all of them. Hey, speaking of UNO, former UNO and Jesuit star Johnny Giavotella is on fire right now. Remember, he was in a battle last year. He didn't even have a job. And he came into a battle to just try to get on the team. He's now the starting second baseman for the Los Angeles Angels. Hey, he only batted 196 in April, but he is batting 373 in May. He's been on fire, 400 over his last dozen games. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and while the conference finals have gotten very interesting the last few days, Toronto, the first team in NBA history to lose the first two games of a series by 50-plus points, and then win the very next two. That's impressive. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan have been putting on a show in those two games up in Canada. 67 points between them last night. 35 for Lowry, 32 for DeRozan. Those guys were 28 of 43. Both had 14 field goals. And on the other side, LeBron and Kyrie did the damage. They combined for 55. Both those guys had 11 field goals, shooting high percentages. No one else on either team had more than 4 field goals or 12 points. And by the way, Bismack Biyombo, 40 rebounds in the last two games. He is on fire with the block shots. There he is, all over LeBron James. Hey, and a huge surprise, OKC. They absolutely drilled the Golden State Warriors. That was 133 to 105, and the score wasn't even that close. I'm going to say this. They were up by 40-something points. That was my preseason pick to win it all. Going into the playoffs, I was like, no way. But they are on fire right now. Golden State's certainly not out of it. They got a big break when, well, one of their all-stars, Draymond Green, a lot of people thought he might get suspended. He's kicked a player on the wrong side of where the player wants to be kicked a couple times in this series. You see it right there. Well, this is one of the more controversial kicks in basketball history, but he will be playing, and they play tonight for Game 4. This is as much of a must-win for Golden State as they've had in the last 2 years in the playoffs. Hey, and what most of the country saw is a major upset in the Preakness Saturday. Well, that wasn't considered very major with people that are in the horse racing business, because if you remember the Kentucky Derby, Exaggerator was the horse that almost caught Nyquist at the very end. But with these conditions, it was rough. You see the track, it was a lot of rain, a lot of mud, and a lot of things can happen. And then the Louisiana duo, the trainer and, of course, the jockey, the DeSormeau brothers, Keith and Kent, well, they won at the very end. Nyquist kind of faded down, and then they took a big run, and then they won it going away. So congrats to all them. And I can't wait. By the way, Saints OTAs start today. And we're not going to be there today. The media won't be allowed until Thursday, but I will be there, and I'm sure one of my guests might be there with me, and I strongly suspect he will. Rick Gailey of SportsNola.com is going to join me today. Also have the LHSAA. That's hard for me to pronounce, but they have all the stuff going on in high school football. Who's going to be playing who in the playoffs? You know what's been going on, public, private, all that stuff. We're going to sort that out with Todd Black. Also, special guest, Brad Edelman, a Pro Bowl offensive lineman with the New Orleans Saints back in the 80s. I cannot wait for this show. All that, plus Derek Freeman will join me on set right here on Primetime Sports.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't, because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
Welcome back, Crescent City. I told you I have a jam-packed show. That is Derek Freeman in the MFG, and you're going to get to know a little more about the lead of that band, the drummer, Derek. Well, he's going to join me on the set. Later in the show, I have Rick Gailey. We're going to talk some Saints, and also Todd Black is going to give you all the ins and outs of what's going on right now with the LHSAA. That's the whole thing going on with private school versus public school. You know, we're going to get into that too. But right now, I cannot wait for this guest. Okay, listen. A couple weeks ago, we had Stan Brock and Steve Court, part of that 80s great offensive line the Saints had when the Saints were rolling with Dalton Hilliard and Reuben Mays running the football. And we also had Willie Roaf. Well, Willie didn't play with my next guest, but those other two did. And his name is Brad Edelman. By the way, let me start by this before I get to this. And welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
And I just want to let people know who you are, because this guy, first of all, was an All-American at Missouri. He played center in college. He was a 30th pick of the NFL draft in 1983. That was a second-rounder back then, would be a first-rounder now. Well, There was from 83 to 89, he played for the Saints and started. 90, he had a bad back, ended up having to retire. But listen to this, Pro Bowler in 1987, 5-time Pro Bowl alternate in the other years. The guy could play, and he was an integral part of that great team. So once again, welcome to the show, and it is my honor to have you here, man.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you. I'm so glad you're back in town after all these years, and you've been back for a while, I know, but to see you do this show, and I've had a chance to see the back shows. And just
nice,
really
nice. I appreciate you checking out. Thank you very much, and I'm back for good, and I couldn't be more ecstatic about it. But listen, you're a Renaissance man. I want to get into what you're doing now. I don't know if everybody out there knows. I know a lot of people know that you're into photography and not just into it. You have an incredible career with it. But we're going to get into that. But right now I want to talk football. You got drafted in 83. Okay, the Saints weren't exactly, the Dallas Cowboys or the Pittsburgh Steelers, any of those great teams. You got drafted by a team that wasn't very good. It's a fun city, but coming from Missouri, when you got picked, what were your first thoughts?
Well, my first thoughts were, because I wasn't that familiar with the New Orleans Saints. I knew they were not one of the better teams in the NFL. But I was so thrilled that somebody knew my name, that they actually, I'd had many of the letters and the people say, we want to draft you, we're interested in you. But when it comes to draft day and they actually call your name, and you say, oh, man, they know I'm out there. That was a pretty big thrill.
Well, what'd you think? I mean, nowadays it's so broken down, and they kind of know where you're going to get drafted. Take people back 33 years. What was it like back then? I know it wasn't as big a performance out there, but what was it like for you? Did you know where you were going to pick or have any idea?
Well, no, and I think it may be different today in that regard, but you speculated because teams would contact you either via letter or they'd call you and say, Brad, you're interested? This is Gil Brandt at Dallas Cowboys. We'd like to have you over here if you're interested in playing with us. Of course, on all bets are off on draft day because you never know exactly what's going to happen and how the cards are going to fall. So I thought I might even go earlier to Dallas or a couple other teams that had pursued me, at least in correspondence. But on that day, it ended up being the New Orleans Saints. And I have to say, I not knowing much about the Saints.
0 winning seasons, by the way, before you got there.
Well, I'm thankful that there's some guys that say they actually, some of the Saints players that played in that 1-15 season say that they're glad they went through that and made them stronger.
Stan Brock says
Stan Brock said that, right?
All the time.
So, yes, and I can understand that truly, but I'm glad I didn't make that season. Anyway, I came in 82, and George Rogers had just been drafted by Bum, and I never enjoyed playing football more than I did under Bum Phillips.
I mean, by the way, you had Bum Phillips. First of all, you had Archie Manning for a couple of weeks, right?
Only 2 weeks, and he was traded to Houston.
And then you had Ken Stabler. I mean, you had some characters that you played with in those early days.
Oh, yes. And then Bum brought over a number of guys that played for him in Houston. And Bum was at the end of his career, and the guys that had helped make his career ended up coming to, including Earl Campbell. Of course, Earl was battered and abused at that point, ice bags on his knees when he wasn't on the field. And but we did. It was quite a storied team in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. When I came in here in 82, oh boy, did I hear stories about the characters and the guys on the team in previous years. And the first thing I saw when I came to the Saints locker room on David Drive in 1982, prior to the season, was Bobby Scott sitting in his jockstrap smoking a cigarette in the front of his locker.
Who is this?
Bobby Scott.
Bobby from Tennessee.
The
long-time backup for Archie Manning.
Right,
yeah.
So that was my welcome to the young.
That's funny. I had a welcome to the Braves
days.
locker room once, like in '93, and Jeff Blauser and Mark Olympia are smoking cigarettes, drinking bottles of Heineken. I'm like, wow, this is the big leagues.
Right.
But hey, tell me, speaking of locker room, tell me your craziest locker room story. I mean, you've been through it. Bobby Hebert's got some stories.
No, I'm not even going to tell you my craziest.
All right, give me the second craziest then.
I don't know. The fun things in the locker room were just the pranks. Somebody putting the heat gel in somebody's mouthpiece before they go out to practice.
Nice.
We had that happen a few times. Not so nice if it happens to
No, but
you.
who do you remember anybody in particular that happened to?
Well,
somebody that didn't mind taking it so well?
A guy named James, I think maybe James Campen was the victim of it, but and who knows? It could have been Steve Cord, it could have been Stan, it could have been. We had plenty of pranksters. A guy named Bill Kontz. So no, it was fun. Now you occasionally have a scuffle in the locker room or something, and that was always interesting because in the locker room, if you have thin skin, you're not going to last long. They'll find those cracks.
Before you got there, obviously Derlin Moore, that's the one from that 1-15 season. They were 8-8 the year before, and everybody expected great things. But you came in with not many expectations. Talk about how the team went from a little below average to really good in 1987 and 88, 89, your last 3 years. That must have been special to watch for yourself.
Well, yeah, Bum had assembled a good cast of players under his reign until '85 when Jim Mora took over. Then Bobby Aber came in as QB from the USFL under Jim, and really Jim was a kind of coach that, like we talked about earlier, was conservative, but he got it to be a disciplined team. He got winning to be the code of the New Orleans Saints, and he did turn us around. Could we have been a better club at some time? I think during that we might have even
a little
been
too
better
conservative at times, you think? I mean, that's the rap on him. I mean,
opinion, but I think so possibly. But I'm sure he could. He might have several comments about my play at that time, but I have a great deep respect for him and his staff at that time. We might have been better, but he brought us to be a winning franchise. And when you go from 7-9, 8-8, best kind of team, up to 12 and 3 during the
12 and
strike
3, yeah,
year.
that's right, strike year, right?
And our first playoff berth in Saints history, it was quite an
You got the
accomplishment.
first touchdown in that game, but it all went downhill after that.
Oh, let's not get into the
meat
meat of that game. No, I don't want to talk about
it. But the Saints went to 4 playoffs, and they were great. I mean, in fact, only San Francisco had a better record during that little run. Buffalo and the Saints were tied. But hey, I'm going to show a picture from your days in Missouri when you were Sporting News All-American. That guy to this guy right here, what's changed and what's the differences?
Well, I'd say physically a lot of differences, just degeneration from over the years of the
You're still in good
abuse.
shape, though.
Well,
you're still in really good
I
shape.
make an effort.
Right.
It really, because I feel if I let it go, and just knowing the damage that I have on the inside, when I let it go, it's going to be a quick, steep slope down. And I'm not going to be able to do it. So as long as I stay on top of it, I kind of live with a calm sense of urgency about my life now, because I don't know how many really good days I have left physically that I'll be able to be active and vital. And I want to live my life being active and vital. So I have to stay on top of this. And a lot of guys do. So it's an effort, and it's a challenge every day.
Yeah, when Steve Court was in, by the way, you two have a great friendship. I mean, he says you'll all stay in touch, you and Stan and Steve. There's Steve right there. He did say, man, your back was keeping you from doing some things you used to do or want to do. But I mean, I look at you now, I didn't see any of that at all. Tell me about your relationship with these guys. You were just with Stan Brock. Some say the greatest offensive lineman, certainly in the first 25 years of the franchise. He was here for 13 of them. Talk about y'all's friendships now.
Well, I found in the last several years, you mentioned Stan Brock's Black and Gold Rodeo, fishing rodeo in Grand Isle, and that's a great event. Does some wonderful things for charity.
You fell off the boat?
Yes, I fell off the boat. Thank you for just off the boat.
How's your back?
Actually, okay.
All right.
Thankfully, it was in about 5 feet of water. It was right on my back. No problems from it. Just and thankfully, none of my team. Well, it actually would have been fun to have a couple of my teammates see it, because they would have been in stitches over it. And it has become much more important to me as I get older to spend whatever time I can with these guys, because they were really intricate in my development. They're sort of the part of the fabric of my life. And when you play for an organization like that, or in a team sport like that, you really develop experiences that you'll never have again in your life. So it's wonderful to see these guys when I do.
All right, I've got to get into what you're doing now, because I think it's spectacular. Before I do, I'm going to kind of segue to it, because there's a picture of you when you were young in the league. I did my research, look back. There's a picture of you with the Neville brothers, or at least a few of them.
Right.
And I recognize a few people in this picture. And I recognize you immediately in the back left, and I think that's Dave Waymer next to you and John Hill on the other side.
Yes. And
of course there's Aaron in the middle, Art back there. But kind of explain what this is, and when was it?
Well, you got, again, Reggie Lewis in the very back, and Louis Oubre was our right guard at the time on the right side. I was contacted by a friend of mine named Al Mixon, who was friends with one of the Monastery brothers. And Al says, hey, these guys are doing a song called Who Dat. Do you have any, can you pull some guys together to come down and sing a version of it?
It's the early days of Who Dat.
No, it was the genesis
of
Who Dat. And so we got these guys together, and we went down to the studios. Boy, I'm forgetting the name of the studio now. And we cut this thing where we were the ones behind Aaron saying, Who Dat say they're going to beat them Saints?
A lot of people did say they're going to beat them Saints back then. I mean,
Well,
that's
they
before
did,
you-
and a lot of people did, unfortunately. But in 2003, that was
1983, right?
1983. That was Who That's when Who Dat really took off.
That's pretty cool because, I mean, you know, usually you have a song like that when you're winning, which y'all did plenty of in 4 years. Y'all like, let's get this going. All right, let's talk about your photography and your art because I think it's amazing. You are a true Renaissance man. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you live in the French Quarter.
Well, I used to. I'm not far from the quarter.
You're not far from the quarter.
Yeah.
But your art, there's a lot of music scenes. There's the Neville's there, but you're obviously into music. I've seen shots with Trombone Shorty. I've seen with the Preservation, Hall Jazz Band and stuff like that. Talk about your love of music and capturing the city the way that you do.
Well, music, maybe even more so than sports early in my life and throughout my life, music has been a constant, and it's really something that feeds my soul. So it was great for me as a photographer to be able to be around the things that I enjoyed in my life, my passions, one of them being music. So I shot many concerts around town, Jazz and Heritage Festival, Essence Festival, Voodoo Festival, many other shows.
And you know our guy, Derek Freeman.
Okay, Derek, yeah. Well, so you already wished him happy birthday, but I'd like to wish him a
Yeah.
belated happy birthday as well and say hello to the
He
fellows
celebrates
over there
for the
who
full
I
month. You know how it
photographed
is.
before. Yeah, and Dee's pretty good thrpoint shooter too.
Is he
Have to
really?
know, from long range,
Dude,
man.
That's
He can
what I've
drop 'em.
heard.
He can
Big
drop 'em.
Game
We used to
James can
play
fill it
years
up too.
ago.
Tuba Steve. There they go. All right, but the rest of your art, though, because I want to get to it for the Mardi Gras stuff is phenomenal. I mean, when did you first experience Mardi Gras? And there's one particular shot here of a float that you've obviously doctored it up. That Claiborne and Carrollton shot. I didn't grow up that far from there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I put a filter on that just to pop out some of the colors, and that's from a late night parade, probably several years ago. And I just, the color really strikes me. So you'll notice in my work there's a lot of vibrant color. I also like black and white, again, I shoot a lot of the different things that I enjoy. Mardi Gras, certainly, New Orleans architecture. As a photographer, there's so much here to enjoy and love.
Yeah, look at that shot. I mean, that is unbelievable. You captured that off the top of a car?
Yeah, I saw a red car out when I lived down the quarter. Red car was reflecting the top of the
Because I thought you had placed
cathedral,
your own
and-
car there, but you just said that's a random
No, it
thing.
just happened. And I was tall enough to get the shot, so I'm thankful.
And these other artistic shots, real quick, I want to show you these. Kind of give me your, the background of you just finding the art in these things.
I have always enjoyed texture, and there's so much funk and texture in this city. And if you look at old buildings and signs and just the wear and decay, to me, there's art in that, and I find it fascinating. And it's one of my favorite things to shoot. So. A lot of these pictures, some of them,
The old
blue
Mid-City,
sky. This
the
is
old-
old Mid-City building. Hey,
Yeah.
Mardi Gras Indians love the culture of our
Yes,
city.
yes.
I've shot the Indians. And a lot of this shooting I have done in the past, I'm not necessarily able to do as much anymore because I don't do work commercially anymore. When I'm able to, I will shoot artistically now and try to keep up with some of these series.
Well, check him out. All you got to do is Google Brad Edelman, and you're going to find some amazing things. You can go to his website as well. But here, man, we have a tradition here. We sign the ball, man. I mean, listen, I feel like I got to get Dombrowski. He's like the only one on
Yeah, you
from
gotta
that
get Jim.
great 80s team that's not on it yet. But here, which on this, by the way, we have a nice gift certificate for a nice restaurant here in town that
Thank
you can
you.
go to.
Legacy.
One's in the Warehouse
Awesome.
District and one in Metairie. Brad, it has been my honor. I mean, truly, to have you on this show, and I just thank you so much.
Right back at you. Thank you.
That was Brad Edelman, man. I mean, this is a cool moment for me because, listen, I lived and died with this Saints team as a kid, and then when I was in high school and then in college with the Saints when he played. Great times. Hey, coming up next, we're switching gears. I told you it's not all sports. We have some entertainment, so I'm going to go Derek Freeman, the leader of our band, right here with the MFG. Coming up next, right here on Primetime Sports.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us.
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude.
Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
Welcome back, Crescent City. Hey, listen, if you missed somebody in that shot right there, this big game, James Martin, and of course, Tuba Steve Glenn, but hey, the guy in the middle, well, he's right here. His name's Derek Freeman.
What's
That's
happening,
right.
my friend?
Good to see you, man.
Great to see you.
And by the way, Brad and I both wish you happy birthday. I'm glad you had a great one.
Man, it was very great. It was a lot of fun. 42.
I wanted people to get to know the person because, hey, we've had some other musicians on the show. We're going to continue to make this a sports and entertainment show. But this guy loves sports, and that's how we met. I mean, we met a couple years ago. A mutual friend of ours was like, hey, man, you mind if Derek comes and sits in and watches the show when I was doing it live downtown? And go from there. I mean, you love sports, and you love listening and talking about it.
Oh, man, well, you know, I was a fan of your show at first because, like, there was a lull in local sports for a while, for a few years there, or no local sports national perspective.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to replace Buddy Diliberto. No one can do that. No one can do that.
But I was a fan of your show, and then our mutual friend over there at Wild Cafe told me to come down, and you put me on the mic the first time we met, and then we played music for you. Your son played music with us. We became boys. But I loved your show. You allowed me to talk about sports. It was a medium I never got a chance to do as being an artist or whatever. So, and then we came to find out a lot of musicians listen to your show.
Right. Well, you killed it, by the way. I put you on just because I wanted to talk, and all of a sudden it morphed into sports. I'm like, wait, this dude knows sports. He's not just a musician that follows a little bit. Speaking of, by the way, I think we might be the only two people, and I have to admit, I didn't keep the prediction going. I didn't make any predictions going to the playoffs. Before the season, I said, I think it's going to be OKC over Cleveland. Now, that's a long way to go. But you did it before the playoffs. That's more impressive to me because we got to see the whole body of work, and most people would have had OKC at best fourth.
It's just, I just believe in Russell Westbrook's killer instinct, and I think the Steph Curry stuff is really irking him.
Yes, it is.
I think he's on a mission to squash that, and it's nice. I mean, Steph's real nice. I just don't think he has that much killer in him. He has killer in him. His game is killer.
It's a different kind of killer.
It's a different kind of killer. But I think Westbrook's on that mission to be the MVP. I think,
Westbrook attacks the rim like he cheated with his wife.
Well,
I mean, he's just like he is.
We'll see tonight. Tonight's gonna tell us the true story of what's gonna happen. But I'm picking OKC.
Tonight's a big night, man. Think about it. I mean, Game 4, because if Golden State wins, they can just forget about that 35-point loss because they go back and they still have home court.
They got 2 games.
So this is as good as it gets. So watch the end of the show first. Let's talk about you, man. You came in years and years ago. You're not New Orleans native, but you're New Orleans. You are New Orleans.
1992, I moved here. 24 years ago.
24 years ago. You're as native as can be. Talk about from then to where you are now in music. By the way, he's an actor, Renaissance man. I talked about Brad being a Renaissance man. This guy, he does videos, he does music and other video commercials. He's doing a commercial with AD, actor, everything else. So talk about it.
I was blessed to come here. I was recruited by Ellis Marcellus out of my high school to come here to go to college, and I studied with him and the late great Harold Baptiste and Victor Goins. Just so many great musicians. Shannon Powell, Herlin Riley, direct influences of mine, and Johnny Vodakovich as drummers.
Yes.
So I'm just blessed to be taught by so many people, and I learned from Danny Barker and Walter Payton and all these great New Orleans legendary music teachers and musicians. So I came in at a time when jazz was like really hot and America was still funding it. So I was lucky.
That was a good time.
It was a great time. And then, it just morphed. It was one of those things where I planned on coming here for 2 or 3 years, and I was going to move to New York to become a jazz musician. And then I just fell in love with the city. I never left. And I've been blessed to play with anybody you can name.
And all over the world,
all over the world.
Yeah, right.
Multiple times over. And like you said. And then I grew up doing musical theater, which was my first love. So being out, Treme and HBO allowed me opportunities to get back into that. So I've done, a bunch of TV shows and movies and commercials. So it's a good life doing this show. It's another dream of mine, to be a co-host and a musical director.
Oh, I love having you, man.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful thing. So, well, I'm just lucky and blessed. And New Orleans is a true gem in my life. And I try not to take it for granted, like Brad was talking about. Just make sure every day, you enjoy it.
Well, you do musician stuff, obviously, in TV. I mean, obviously, Treme and stuff, but you also act as well. You mentioned that. NCIS, y'all are part of this. That show's killing it, by the way.
James and I are regulars on the show. Right. Steve, too, for that matter. We're planning on doing a few of those next year now. We're hoping they're going to buy one of our songs. So NCIS, make sure you buy me and James' song.
That would be big. I mean, talk about that next step. How big would that be?
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just... I was blessed to sell a few songs to Tremaine, and it's, there's some life-changing checks, like, honestly. So
there's a lot of laughter from the peanut gallery over here. Right.
So, our mission, because we all can't do this forever. I mean, I'm only 42. It's not like I'm that old, but I've been playing drums for a long time.
Dude.
The body will kick back on you.
Right.
So,
you play a lot of gigs in one day, too.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
But having licensing and music and TV and mailbox money is a good thing at this age. So
before I finish and talk about the bands you're in and where they can see you, you were the one that gave me the moniker. You told me about Current Ruffins, because that's how I got introduced to you. You drummed with Current Ruffins for a while, and you said, he's the new unofficial mayor of New Orleans.
Right.
Talk about that relationship and how it blossomed.
Oh, Kermit. Kermit is a natural-born clown. I see him as an older brother. I learned a lot from him, like so much, as far as like stage presence and charisma and keeping people happy around. Kermit. I'm blessed to have that time and him, and of course I traveled all over the world with him and a lot of these opportunities.
So you a barbecue swinger?
I was a barbecue swinger.
You're a barbecue swinger.
Absolutely, and that's a real thing too. Like we all actually barbecue. That's not like a fake
I love
name.
it.
Yeah. But anyway, but I was blessed to have that experience with him, and he taught me a lot, and got me to the point now where I can lead my own bands, Soul Brass Band, which
you have the shirt Soul right there. There it is. Represent.
James
represent.
What can I say? Stalwarts.
Stalwarts.
Yes.
Hey, James, it's bigger than members. It's stalwarts.
I got a word out. Yeah.
No, and plus you got, you did Smokers World.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got, the
MFG trio, obviously.
Yeah, so you're all over the place.
Well, yeah, it's great, man. And the brass band thing has allotted us more opportunities. Like you said, we did a commercial with Anthony Davis, and we did a video game for the Mafia video game. We're going to do more NCIS and all that. So, Soul Brass Band, we're here. We're here to stay. It's a great time.
Yeah, Google them up because they're playing all the time. Yeah. I mean, I've been talking about the show at DBA. I'm not supposed to really advertise on here.
It's okay.
But just look them up.
Look on the website. You'll find where we're at.
Yeah, and by the way, you've done a lot of albums. I mean, so while you're signing the ball, kind of let people know. This ain't just a new thing with you.
Well, actually, my last record, DWB, I won a few awards for the Offbeat.
There you go, right there.
Stuff like that. But actually, the MFG record is done. Like, it got mastered yesterday.
Nice.
And so we're trying to put that out in September. James and I are working on the artwork this week. And so we'll have that out in September. We'll premiere it here on Primetime Sports.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I appreciate it. You hold that ball for a second. But
I went to LSU until they kicked me out.
Until they kicked him out. He signed the LSU ball, though. Hey, I appreciate him and everything he and his band do for this show. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, coming up next, we're not done. I have been taking a little break because I did heavy Saints for a few weeks in a row. Didn't do much of them last week at all. Just kind of mentioned. OTAs started today. The media, like us, will be allowed to go in on Thursday. I will be there, and I'm going to take a lot of footage and stuff as much as they let me. But my next guest has been around a long time. The first athlete in UNO sports history. That's right, he played golf in the late 60s. His name is Rick Gailey. He is part of SportsNola.com and so much more. He's next, and after that, I'm going to have Todd Black fill you in on the LHSAA and that whole quagmire. I'm coming up next on Primetime Sports.
The mark of Legacy Kitchen is simple. We offer numerous dishes like chicken enchilada soup, prime filet and loaded baked potato, baby back ribs, and so much more. At Legacy Kitchen, we serve American fare, crafted cocktails, and we offer a great selection of wines by the glass. Metairie at Betts and Martin Berman, and in the Warehouse District at Tchoupitoulas and Girard.
North Shore Basketball Training Center is located at 70239 Highway 59 in Abita Springs. Here we offer developmental programs for all ages, focusing on structure, hard work, effort, and teamwork. North Shore Basketball Training Center also has year-round basketball teams, leagues, camps, training, speed and agility conditioning, and other programs to help enrich our students. North Shore Basketball Training Center, now with a new training facility at 3747 West Esplanade Avenue in Metairie.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Derek's back in the band. By the way, I really enjoyed that segment. We're going to have a lot more musicians coming in. I've got Big Sam from Funky Nation coming. I've got Fred LeBlanc from Cowboy Mouth coming in. We're going to continue to mix this, not just sports, and make it sports and entertainment, have it fun, a New Orleans type show, and that obviously will always include music. Hey, this guy has told me he's the anti-Renaissance man. I don't believe him. When you're the first athlete of a university, well, there's some Renaissance about that. Well, I was about to say another word that my sons would be like, Dad, you're too old to say. By the way, he's a baller. His name is Rick Gailey. He's with SportsNOLA.com, but he was the first athlete at the University of New Orleans on the lakefront. He was a golfer. He played football. He played all sports, but here he is right here. Rick, it's good to see you.
Oh, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. What a great setting this is, my goodness.
I was going to say gangsta, but that just doesn't fit you. Doesn't fit you. But what you did was gangsta. It really was. But you're not gangster. But the thing is like, let me say, every time I had you on the old radio show, every single time, I got the same response. That guy knows what he's talking about. You need to have more. You would break down the way the offensive lineman would step back, and that would be the difference of the production that Drew Brees was getting. And I was just blown away because I'd go back to the film, and I'm like, he's right. This guy's stepping with this foot. He's taking his time. So that's the kind of information you give.
Right, and that's my role in this whole media genre, so to speak. Retired 5 years ago, started working with Ken Trahan first, and then Ed Daniels and many other people.
Retired from coaching?
Retired from coaching after 34 years. And that's what I'm doing. I'm taking not just the who, what, where, when that reporters do in doing a story, but the why, the how, and the how much.
There it is.
And to try to put things in context, because that's what gets missed in so many stories and so much what is passed off as analysis, that we don't really get down to the why, to the how, and the how much. And that's my role in this whole game.
And you say it like it is. I mean, you don't candy coat, and I'm guilty of doing that sometimes, I'll admit, but you flat out say, Scott, this is not going to work. This thing won't happen. And the thing I love about you, this is my 4th year completely back, but this will be my 5th season, which means this will be my 5th mini camp and OTA, and I always see you at these things. You have a presence, but I don't see you much during the regular season, which I find interesting, but you're always at the OTAs and minicamp, and when they come back for training camp, explain why.
Well, and it's something that people on the outside don't understand how the media is manipulated. We're led around like it's a game of duck, duck, goose. We meet in an area, and then we march single file out to the practice field.
And don't be late like I usually am, because you will wait outside that fence.
Exactly, and then turn around and march out. Well, in OTAs and mini camps and in preseason, we get to see the whole practice. And I love going to practice.
Yes.
I love to see professionals prepare like craftsmen. When you look at a Zach Strief and a Max Unger and a Drew Brees and so many other ones, their preparation is just beautiful to watch. But that's where I start getting the answers, from the game film and from the practices, because I'm familiar with that. I'm back on the field again, so to speak. In the regular season, I have game film. And the only practice that you get to see in the regular season as a member of the media is individual work in the beginning.
Yep.
And they're hiding what they're going to do.
Right.
You don't even know what positions they're playing at that particular time. So that's not, it's not that necessary for me to have access and get quotes from people. They have people much more expert at that than I am in asking questions and reporting. But I get game film, and I take what they say, and I take what they do and try to reconcile it. And that's, as you mentioned, that's the biggest difference right now. I don't care what they say, it's what they do.
I love standing next to you. I remember last year when Delvin Breaux was starting to go off that first OTA, and I had you on one side, Bobby Hebert on the other, and you might have been with some of your other friends.
Right.
But I was just listening. You don't even know I'm listening, but just the things that come out of your mouth, the pearls of wisdom. Delvin Breaux, that's a good example. Right. That's a guy that came. I mean, everybody knows the story. I mean, he was on our very first show right here, but you know, he was not supposed to play football again. He was off the field for 6 years, and now they're saying he might be, if things go as he progressed, he might be one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. How does this happen?
Yeah, absolutely. You keep grinding. That's why I love doing golf and football together. Golf's the greatest individual sport there is. Football is the greatest team sport that there is. This is what you learn in golf. You hit it, you find it, you hit it again. And you keep hitting it till you get in the hole. And that's what Delvin Breaux did.
I don't always hit it again. I miss it occasionally.
Yeah, sometimes you got to find it. That's where finding is pretty important. But that's what Delvin Breaux did. He just kept going and going and going. He had a belief and a faith that he was going to heal properly and he was going to be able to play after what would have short-circuited many people's careers. And it's beautiful that he had the opportunity. And that's what's so great about America and what we do in this country, that if you do it long enough and you don't take no for an answer long enough.
True story there.
And, then it'll work for you.
And he's such a joy to be around. And I hope he never changes. And that's one guy I don't think will. Hey, as far as the Saints, I mean, listen, this 2 7-9 season, that Super Bowl is a distant memory, although I still have fond memories. But the fact is this team has had 2 losing records in a row. Drew Brees, Sean Payton, they elected to stay together. Drew Brees is not signed as of this taping yet, but talk about this marriage and where it is from where it began and where it has been.
Well, they're better together than they are separately. It's a relationship that the eventual answer is greater than the sum of the parts. They just complement each other so well. Sean Payton is an old Air Coryell type of system coach, and that's what Drew Brees does the best. He's not a West Coast kind of guy.
See, everybody under 50 didn't get what you just said, but I am right at 50. Dan Coryell was a great coach of the San Diego Chargers with Dan Fouts and that air machine.
Yep, the vertical passing game, going all the way back to Sid Gilman.
Right.
And so that's Sean Payton's lineage, and that's what Drew Brees does well, and that's what the offensive line does well. When you see Drew Brees hit his 5th step and the ball comes out as opposed to hitting the ground and then moving up a step or 2, climbing the pocket, so to speak, he's much more effective climbing the pocket, and the offensive linemen are much better at that as well. And that's going to be what I observe. The Saints were more effective at the end of last year because Drew Brees got back to climbing the pocket, and it wasn't his fault that he wasn't before that.
Right.
The design of the offense was trying to get him to hit the ground, hit his 5th step, get the ball out. It's not a coincidence that the offensive line coach got changed after that either.
Such a weird year. Start 1-4, go 3-1, go 0-4, then finish 3-1. It's like, do they have a chance of putting this thing all together? Because they did have a lot of injuries. And listen, we all know that the injuries aren't the only thing. There were some issues there. But what do you think is the prognosis for this team and I'm going to throw this as a two-parter, the free agents that are coming in and the draft picks, kind of talk about what they can do to help the production of this team.
And I'm encouraged but not excited. In fact, at my age, I try not to get excited because the opposite of excitement is depression. And I don't need any depression at this point. So there's some encouraging signs. Draft-wise, it's encouraging with the players that were drafted. It's not as encouraging because there's only 5. The Saints reverting back to what got them into trouble in the first place, where from 09 to 14.
Trading up.
Yeah, trading up and costing yourself draft choices. And when you look at the successful teams in the league, they don't trade up. They trade down because you're only successful 50% of the time with your draft choices. So the easiest way, the best way to get one surefire draft pick is to have 2. And now you've
it seems like the formula that Belichick's used, correct?
Absolutely. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens, when you look at New England, when you look at Seattle, teams like that, that's exactly what they do. That they increase the number of draft picks. So I'm encouraged by who they drafted. There's not enough of them. Because remember, last year they started the season with 47% roster turnover. Yes. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. Because the closer you get to a 20% turnover where your whole roster's turning over every 5 years, now you're getting into championship level football. Free agency, plenty questions still to be answered. Is Kobe Fleener going to be who we think he is?
Right.
He has some talent. I've been trying to research. Can he catch the ball away from his body? Can he catch the back shoulder throw?
Can he high point those balls that Drew likes to throw over the middle, like he did with Jimmy Graham and before that Jeremy Shockey? What do you think?
Exactly. I think there's some indications that he is capable of doing that because he can catch the ball away from his body as opposed to Coleman, who has got to turn and face the football
No doubt.
in order to be able to catch it. So and I'm very interested in seeing what they do at the weak side linebacking position.
All right, talk about that real quick, because you got Laurinaitis. You know you brought him in to be the quarterback of your defense.
Right.
He might have some declining skills, but his brain is there. He's a leader, and he's durable. He does not miss games. So talk about him and then combine with what they're going to do at weak side.
Right, and so that's going to solidify the inside. You've got a great knowledge there. He's not a good guy in space, but he's a good run defender, and he's going to stay in the box all the time. Now that bumps Stephon Anthony. I thought he would go to Will, but he's going to the Sam linebacker. And I went back to 2011 to see how Dennis Allen used the Sam linebacker. So that's where Von Miller played in that scheme. So it's going to be interesting to see how Stephon Anthony gets used. But Donnell Ellaby now is the weak side linebacker. He's the position adjuster. He's got to be able to play in the box. He's got to be able to play on the edge. He's got to be able to play in space. And he's very good at it. The Saints defense was good when Ellaby was
5-1 with him,
Right.
2-7 without him.
Exactly. Will he be there for all the games? Now, they've
key.
drafted some people, Alexander and Stupek. It's going to be interesting to see how they use those players at that particular position. They're capable. And also, I'm interested in seeing how they use Eric Harris. Will they use him in nickel situations at the will linebacking position? Because that's in vogue right now. That's safety inside linebacker.
Glad you mentioned Eric Harris. That's my dark horse this year. Delvin Breaux's teammate at the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I love this kid. I love his tape. I love his person. I mean, I've talked to him many times. This is one guy I've been talking to a lot during this whole process. Anyway, here we're going to do the sign. I got to get a new ball. Redhead Tsunami, we got to get a new ball because this one's getting full. You're all over the Saints, so I'm not going to make you sign LSU. You went to UNO. So find a spot. You got a nice gift certificate for a nice restaurant here in town.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy. Rick, dude.
I appreciate being here with you.
You'll definitely be back. We're going to have you back during training camp for sure. You got me?
Anytime, my friend. This is great.
That's
who
Ricky.
Who would have thought in this country that an old guy could be doing this? You
Rick
gotta love
Gailey,
it.
baby. SportsNola.com. He's part of that posse over there. Those guys get it done. Check it out, SportsNola.com, and so much more. Hey, talking about getting it done. All right, there's a topic coming up next that I can honestly tell you I don't know a whole lot about, so I bring people that know a lot more than me. Todd Black is going to talk about the LHSAA and that craziness going on. Private versus public. That's next right here on Primetime Sports.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Hey, welcome back, Crescent City. It's been a jam-packed show, and it's going to be no different for this last segment. I want to thank Derek Freeman, the MFG, Big Game James, Tuba Steve, and, of course, Derek. I enjoyed that. Rick Gailey was a lot of fun just now. And earlier in the show, Brad Edelman, great photographer now, great football player back in the day, and a great guy, as you saw. But my next guest I've known for 30 years. I talked to him about a month ago, and we're talking about the craziness going on in high school football. Like I said, when I moved back to town, I was like, what's happening here? Why aren't the public schools playing the private schools in championships anymore? I didn't understand what was happening. I kind of learned to. But it seems like there's about 1,000 state championships. There really is. I stole that from Derek, by the way. But fact is, Todd Black, who is a football coach, he quarterbacked at Neville, which is a powerhouse, a little before Bubby Brister did back in the day in the 80s. He's a football coach now. He's also does a lot of radio up there. He's got a real job as well. Hope you took care of me, by the way. And on the flip side, here he is, Todd. Welcome to the show. It's good to see you again.
I appreciate it. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Hey, okay, first of all, for those of you that don't know, you just kind of stumbled on the show and you know nothing about high school sports, there is some craziness going on. The public schools no longer play the private and Catholic schools for championships, and there's a lot of reasons we're going to get into. I don't really understand them fully, but we're going to try to let you see both sides. So, I'm not just talking on one side. I just know mainly because tradition-wise, I liked it when we all got to play each other like we did for the last several years.
Right.
But the fact is, Todd, I'm going to let you break this down because right now is a pivotal point, because I just remember from the top of my head at the end of last season, I thought it was going to go back to what it used to be. And then I heard something that it was going to stay the same, and now they're going to meet together in a couple of weeks. So I hope I let in without confusing the heck out of everybody, because I'm confused. Fill us in.
Okay, well, it has been really chaotic over the last several years. And in 2013, obviously the principals of the LHSA opted to split. And that's one thing I want to clarify at the very beginning, is that when you start talking about the LHSAA, the commissioner has very little say-so. It is all about what the principals want to do.
Explain what that stands for, first of all. So if somebody comes in, Louisiana High School
Athletic Association.
Right, okay.
And it is it's an association that runs all the athletics for high schools in the state of Louisiana, that was put together in about the 1920s for the principals, by the principals. So really, it's whatever the principals decide
Principals
to do.
of the school.
Of the high schools,
Okay,
correct.
right.
So the principals get to really decide how athletics is run. Now, that was a great idea back in the day when most of the time the principals were coaches. Well, this day and time, principals are more judged on academics and probably have very little influence for the athletics. Even more so, I would say that the principals, a lot of them don't even like athletics and aren't very supportive of it either.
Which makes it kind of interesting, because why are they deciding on what to do? How many of the ones, give me a percentage, of all the principals out there, I know there's a lot that do love athletics, but what would you think, from your experience, would be kind of a percentage of how many are really into it and how many just tolerate it?
Man, I couldn't really, I'd say 50-50.
Okay.
Probably, and it just depends on where you are. And, my biggest thing is being a coach. The thing that athletics allows you to do is talk about adversity. And I always like to say, where is adversity talked about other than on an athletic field? It's not really talked about at the dinner table. It is at my house, but
Right.
But, and that's what life's all about, is being able to overcome adversity. And that's what athletics teaches our kids, and I think that's why it's such a huge part of our society, especially in the state of Louisiana. I mean, you've talked about, with Coach Gailey, with the Saints, you talk about LSU, you've talked about Tulane today, you've talked about Southeastern. That's what Louisiana's all about. We've got a great high school athletic program, and I hate to see it being ruined.
All right, I want you to either dispel some myths, because I'm just saying, from someone on the outside looking in, which I certainly am. I played in that organization back in the 80s, but
it's been a long, as well.
It's been a long time, right? But the fact is that the John Curtises of the world, because I remember back in the day, they were always accused of maybe, recruiting, and it's even back then. But the fact is like, I don't know any school that doesn't say a little bit of recruit, say, hey, do you want to come to my school? I used to go to their camps, and I thought about going to John Curtis, not to play football, but to play the other sports. Right. But the fact is, that's one. And then it got more recent in the 90s with Evangel Christian, and they started getting really big and good. And then Calvary Baptist followed that up, and they're a powerhouse now. So this is just from the outside looking in. Is it because of schools like this that some of the public schools that felt they weren't getting their due were making us think about it?
Absolutely, and I think more importantly, it's John Curtis and Evangel. Now, John Curtis has been around for a long time. Evangel more came on the block immediately and started being successful right off the bat. Calvary, interesting enough, did not win a championship, Scott, until the split occurred in 2013.
And Calvary, by the way, the guy that started, Johnny Booty, Josh Booty's dad, he was part of Evangel's deal. Obviously, all the Booty boys, but they became a power, and then that coach there has been successful, and apparently he stepped down recently.
Correct.
So talk about that.
So, ultimately, I'll talk about what's going on with the split and, how Calvary and John Curtis and Evangel all fit into that. So 2013 went through 2016, and the principals came to a vote again that they wanted to go ahead and expand the split. It only included football for the first 3 years. So they came up with a proposal. The principal from Manny wanted to include softball, baseball, girls basketball, and boys basketball. And so that split went over that vote went in January, and it was approved. When a proposal is presented to the principals, it is not looked through. It's just, I want this to split here, LHSAA, figure it out, here's how it goes. So when they did this, they realized there were 0-15 teams playing 0-16 teams for a first-round playoff.
That's crazy.
Chance to go into the second round.
Well, that's ironic because the school Manny, I mean, if you see it, it looks like Manny, like M-A-N-Y, but Manny, the Manny Tigers, that's been one of the teams that I've heard that's complained a little bit, and now they have become, recipients of having some good luck since this happened.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things that you talk about is, in Class 2A from 2010 to 2012, you saw teams in Class 2A with the worst record of maybe 3-7. Well, when we moved on in the future, now you see teams with 0-10 teams. There's the East Iberville team in Baton Rouge, and they go out, they play their hardest all the time, but they're 0-30 their last 3 years, and they got a 3-year playoff streak.
That's crazy.
That's not what sports is all about.
Well, this is participation awards. I mean, this is whether you're for those or against those, and I see the merits of both, but I prefer to think, hey, you earn something when you go to the playoffs.
Well, what teaches kids the most about life? And that's what I think our principals need to really think about here. Is it that everybody gets a trophy? No, absolutely not. You've got to work hard. You've got to have the right attitude. You've got to give the effort to be successful in life. It's the same thing that happens on a football field. Good coaches aren't going to find success or judge their success by winning championships. If that's the case, you're going to be a miserable coach. You've got to find the smaller successes, and that's watching your kids grow and develop into fine young men, good business people, and good citizens of the society that they live in. And I think this give everybody a trophy thing has got to be thrown out the window, and we really got to look at what we're doing and what we're teaching our kids, especially the students of the state of Louisiana.
Well, you're one of the best citizens I know, and here's my message. Can't we all just get along? Let's just get this done. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. There is too much of a split. Let's make a decision and stick with it. But we know what's happening right now. It doesn't seem like it's working. But I want to thank you for helping clarify. I can't say I'm completely clarified, but we'll know a lot more in the next couple of weeks because they do get together. But Todd, I want to thank you for bringing it my attention. Here's a nice gift certificate from a wonderful restaurant here in town. A friend of mine, Paul McGoey, owns it. But here, enjoy that, and then there you go. You went to LSU. Sign that LSU ball with pride. Todd Black, I want to thank him. So many people to thank on the show. I want to thank them all. I mean, listen, I can't get it done without my producer, Will Hill. He is unbelievable. Derek Freeman in the MFG. Love their band. Loved having Derek on today, as well as Rick and Brad Edelman. Hey, Naila Jones, Kenny Juno, Jay Smoove, Josh Smith. Like I said, the Redhead Tsunami, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, and everybody else. And hey, by the way, you can always, I put up a couple stories with the Pelicans last night, possible free agents they can go to, Kent Bazemore or maybe Nicolas Batum from France. He would be a guy that fit in well. I don't know if the Pels can afford him, but go to PelicansPride.com and SaintsInsider.com. And by the way, I have a very special person that's going to join me doing Saints Insider. I'll say it, Deuce McAllister. He's about to do it, and so's Jim Moore. The thing's going to blow up really soon, and that's coming up. But you can also go Twitter at DScottAlexander. I want to thank everybody out there. It's been a fun show. Next week, I'm going to have a best of, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You won't want to miss that on Primetime Sports.